Welcome. Today I decided to kill some of my free time by ranking all of the movies in the Friday the 13th franchise. Friday the 13th is a cautionary tale of what happens when teenage camp counselors have poor work ethic, terrible accountability, and have the audacity to behead a grieving mother just because she doesn't know how to appropriately channel her rage.
Killer.
I would say that Friday the 13th is my favorite classic horror franchise, and Jason Voorhees is 100% my favorite killer from the original Fab Four. I would say I like all of the movies to some degree, varying degrees, and all of them are important, right? They all help bring Jason and his story to life. They all serve a purpose. They all have a place, but maybe some of them are, just objectively better and are going to be placed higher on a ranking. My ranking is going to be from worst to best. And disclaimer, my ranking is going to be based on my opinion. So my opinion may be different than your opinion. That is 100% okay. That's what makes life fun. In fact, if my opinion is different than yours, I want to know about it. Please let me know. I think it's fun to share difference of opinions and talk about things and learn about other people's viewpoints. That's what makes humans fun. Now, I also will warn you that in my eyes, for a movie to be considered a Friday the 13th movie, there are 3 things that must be a part of that movie. 1, Jason Voorhees, or a killer, a physical killer with the last name Voorhees. 2, there has to be a central group of teens or young adults that's being preyed upon. Now, obviously, there can be other people in the movie that are preyed upon or killed. That can be all different ages, but the core group has to be teenagers, or, again, like those early 20s. And lastly, the film must somehow tie back to Camp Crystal Lake. That is Jason's, comfort zone. It has to be involved in some shape, way, or form. Now, how the film decides to incorporate these 3 factors, that's up to them. I encourage creativity. I think it's fun when a director or a writer tries to tell a story in a different way. I encourage it. But if you deviate too much, or if your execution is bad, I'm probably not going to like the movie very much. And on that note, let's get to my ranking. Based on what I just told you, it shouldn't be too shocking what's in my 12th spot. So number 12 in my ranking, the very worst of the franchise in my opinion, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. So this was released in 1993. Let me give you a brief synopsis. Jason Goes to Hell follows the spirit of Jason Voorhees as it transmits from person to person in a mission to possess a member of the Voorhees bloodline, so Jason can resurrect himself and continue his killing. Need I say more? So I would probably say that I don't think I'm alone that this is in my least favorite of the franchise. I don't think a lot of people like this movie that like Friday the 13th. It feels a little off, right? I mean, for a number of reasons. But let's start with the positive. It kept Jason's story going. It kept it going in a weird direction, but it kept it going.
I told you my compound would take you places. I never said they'd be places you wanted to go.
I can't say it didn't do something different, because it most definitely did. It did something different. In my opinion, Jason Goes to Hell has one of the most gruesome kills in the entire franchise. If you know, you know. There is some good gore in this. I don't mind the opening sequence. I also really like the last clip. So the opening sequence, the last clip, everything between that though, not my cup of tea. My biggest complaint is that Spirit Jason is not Jason. I don't hear that it's trying to claim that it is. It's not Jason Voorhees. I don't get to see Jason killing these people. I don't even get to see someone that looks like Jason killing these people. So I don't really love the supernatural piece. It's not my cup of tea. I don't think it was a lot of people's cup of tea. Also, I really don't like in movies when things are transmitted from person to person via things like jutting out of someone's mouth. It makes me really uncomfy and a little bit vomity, so just watching this is hard for me, which means I don't ever really desire to watch it necessarily, which is also why it's not very high on my list. Also, this installment brings in all this new lore and half-sister, and it's how are we just first hearing all this? This is the 9th movie, and now we're getting all of this story about how only a Voorhees can kill him, and if he dies, if he possesses a Voorhees, he can be resurrected. It's where did this come come from? Also, yeah, you have a half-sister and a niece? Where were they? Where have they been? But I think one of my biggest gripes with this film is these people are possessed by the spirit of Jason Voorhees, yet he doesn't use a machete once in this movie. Not a single one. There's not a single machete kill except for by Steven. So how is this Jason? Jason and his machete, they go together. They are a duo. They are a package deal. And there is not a machete kill by Jason in this. So I don't know. I think this movie finds a way to be too much and not enough all at the same time. Also, they didn't spell Voorhees right.
Why are you the way that you are? I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
So in 11th place, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. So part 5. It's kind of going on the same theme. It's trying to do something different, which I appreciate, but if your execution is bad, kind of defeats the purpose of doing something different. Because if you're doing something different, at least try and do it well. So I think, looking at some of the positives for A New Beginning, it tried something different and it gets credit for that. 100% gets credit for trying something different. They brought back Tommy Jarvis's character, which is great. I love when a series has a reoccurring character that's not just the villain or just, the crazy side character.
It's got a death curse.
I like that. I like that you get to be familiar with someone and they're not just killing them off in the opening sequence. Also, it has Reggie Nicholas, who's fantastic. So, awesome blossom. Now, some of the negatives. So some of the side characters are a wee bit annoying and just a little bit too much for me. That's my personal taste. Other people might like them. Some people find them really charming. There's some that I'm like, why are you even in this? And speaking of why is someone in this, Tommy Jarvis is technically in the movie, but not in the movie for most of it. I get it, they're trying to make him a red herring, but it's still frustrating to have a character that you're kind of excited to be a part of it because it's going to be a reoccurring role, and then he's not even in the movie. And also, I think that the character seemed interesting, and it's like, why aren't you having him in here? Also, yeah, Jason isn't in it. You see Jason, so you think he's in this movie, which is why I ranked it higher than Jason Goes to Hell, but he's not actually in this movie. And I'm sorry, but the Roy Burns storyline has more plot holes than a cemetery. It's like, I'm sorry, you have a son? Okay. Does he know you're his dad? Do they know you're his father? What happened here? So I think, I get that they were trying to return to the whodunit mentality of the original, and I appreciate that they tried to at least introduce the character that was gonna be the killer in the end, unlike the first one where we don't even know Miss Voorhees is an option. I don't think it was very well executed. In 10th place, I also feel like this one's gonna be agreed upon by a lot of people, Freddy vs. Jason from 2003. I think the biggest disappointment about this movie is it was something that fans were really looking forward to, and it was really hyped up, and I'm sure our expectations were high, but it just feels like it's such a forgettable movie given the premise. I mean, you have two iconic villains from two very successful horror franchises coming together to battle it out. The concept is amazing. You get to see Jason and Freddy fight, which is awesome. But other than that, there's not a lot of pros to this movie, I feel like. The two biggest pros I can think of is, one, it looks like there was money spent on it, which makes sense. It had the highest budget of any of the Friday the 13th films. And also, I do really like the Jason fire walk through the cornfield at the rave. I think that's really fun. But I think, honestly, other than that, the acting's not good, the dialogue's not good. It looks like, yes, there was money put into the film, but it looks like a lot of it went to CG. The characters aren't great, and the actors who play them aren't great, except for Linderman. I love Linderman. I think he's hilarious. My biggest complaint is I do not have the desire to rewatch this, and that just seems wrong. It should be something I look forward to seeing because it's this epic battle between these two great villains, and I have no interest. I actively avoid it, actually. In the 9th place, Jason X from 2002. This is actually the movie I saw for the first time the most recently. I hadn't seen this movie. I had no idea. I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't realize I'd never seen it, which was weird. But yeah, so overall, this movie was better than I thought it would be, because you hear Jason in space and you're just like, what kind of a hot pile of garbage is this gonna be? It was goofy and cheesy, but it was meant to be, so that was fine, right? There's a lot of really cheesy one-liners.
Oh, this sucks on so many levels!
But that's the tone they were going for, so that makes it okay. They weren't trying to take themselves seriously and then have the dialogue be so corny that it like ruins the tone of the movie. I think that they accomplished what they were setting out to do. It's in space, so that's different, but they still found a way to tie back to Camp Crystal Lake. That's where the research facility was, so that's really great. I think the thing I enjoy most about it though is that we actually get to see what triggers Jason, that certain noises trigger Jason and actually cause him to awaken from his slumber. And I think that's really, really enjoyable. Also, I really enjoy the virtual Camp Crystal Lake scene. I think those two characters trying to, entice him is actually really funny and really well done. On the negative side though, and this is again personal taste, I'm not a huge sci-fi person, so I think it's cool it's in space because it's something different, but I am not a huge sci-fi person, so I will just naturally not want to rewatch this one that much just because that is the setting. I do think the visuals are a little bit dated because it's in space. I think that something that I really like about the woods camp environment is that it's kind of timeless because it's natural. Even if there's old lenses being used or old filming styles, I think that the setting is timeless. But I think that when you have an environment that is taking place in space, it has to be completely man-made. I just don't think it holds up the same as natural setting for a movie because it's gonna get dated. And this movie came out in the early 2000s, and you look at it and you can tell it came out in the early 2000s. Whereas I think you could look back at some of the older Friday the 13th movies and they're old because of the filming style, but otherwise everything else kind of holds up really great, which is nice. And I think otherwise my biggest complaint is that I feel like there's a lot of characters and I don't feel like any of them really stand out to me. I feel like they're all kind of forgettable. In my 8th spot, Friday the 13th, Part 3, which came out in 1982. So for a long time, this one was actually on the top of my list. This was my favorite one. But as I've aged and I've matured, I think I've just started to realize why I liked this movie. It's got the woods, it's got Jason. Jason gets his mask. So basically I like this movie because of Jason, which in theory should be all of them, but it's not. So also, I think I really like the version of Jason that's in this. I feel like he's super chill. I feel like he's kind of grown a level of confidence that he didn't have in the second one. In the second one, I feel like he was really frantic. In this one, he's just strolling along like he owns the place. He knows what he's doing. He's confident in his abilities.
So smug. Like he thought it was funny, like this.
He is the man we wanted him to be, and that I like. Also, I really do love Andy's death in this, where he gets sliced in half and they shoot it from the bottom up. I think that looks really, really cool, and I think that is a great kill. But honestly, this film is it's actually really hard for me to get through it now. It's kind of boring, it's kind of meh. The characters are meh. I think Chris is a meh final girl. A lot of the acting is not great. In fact, sometimes it's downright bad. Also, the whole 3D thing, and I know everyone comments on this, that it was filmed and meant to be in 3D. I do feel like the 3D shots really kind of distract. It makes it feel unnatural. It reminds me that I'm watching a movie, and it makes me feel less immersed in the experience. And I don't know, I think that takes away from the experience of watching the movie, and it can make it hard to watch. Also, we gotta mention it, Rick's death is just so bad. So bad. Not good. So it's funny, because I think that it might be one of the worst deaths. Worst looking deaths might be Rick's death, and then you have Andy's death that is really great, so it's just so weird. Honestly, my 7th and my 8th spot, I switch them around a lot, so sometimes 3 moves up, and sometimes this one moves back to where 3 is. But right now, I would say in the 7th spot is Friday the 13th, The New Blood, which is ironically Part 7, so that works out kind of nice. 7. This one, I feel like I don't gravitate to rewatch a lot. I have to give it credit because it found a way to do something different while still incorporating those 3 components that I find really important to the film. It has Jason, it has the woods, or Camp Crystal Lake, and it has teenagers.
Outrageous.
Now, the teenagers aren't the only focus, the house of teenagers aren't the only focus, but that's okay. And then they have this new spin where they have Tina, who has telekinetic powers, who's basically their off-brand Carrie White, so it's kind of like a faux crossover, which is really cool. I also love it because it has Bernie in it from Weekend at Bernie's, and I mean, he plays a terrible doctor that you really hate, but you get to see him die, so that's definitely a plus, and they did a great job making me hate him, because I mean, otherwise, he's lovable Bernie. Also, you do get Kane Hodder for the first time, which brings a whole new level to Jason and his confidence and his strength, which you see Jason just swinging people in sleeping bags, which is a great kill. I love when he just like throws Melissa's body and it's like just this like ragdoll that falls into the corner behind the TV. It's so funny. And also another plus, you get Crazy Ralph technically, or at least his voice. I mean, he does narration, so that's pretty cool. I say the downside to the 7th installment, the characters are super tropey and honestly kind of forgettable. I do think that it's great that they incorporated the telekinesis into it, but some of the telekinesis shots are like really not great, or they don't hold up. I'm sure they probably look good for the time, but they don't really hold up. So it kind of dates the movie. Also, I don't think that Tina and Nick had the greatest chemistry. It's a little awkward. And honestly, Tina in general, I mean, I know that she has supernatural powers, which is really cool, but I don't think she's that strong of a final girl. I think there's a lot of other final girls that demonstrated greater strength, even though they only had normal human abilities. I'm always a little confused about Tina, because she's like one of the few people that can actually take Jason down, like single-handedly, or no-handedly, I guess. But I don't think that she's as strong as some of the other final girls. All right, now here's the one that I'm sure is going to be the hottest of hot takes. I know no one agrees with me with where this one is, but that's okay. I'm sure people were waiting for me to mention this one. In my 6th spot, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which came out in 1989. So I am aware I am on an island alone that I like this movie, probably, or that I didn't rank it worse. But honestly, this one was my favorite for a very, very long time. Longer than Part 3 was my favorite. Like, this one, I just love it so much. And I know objectively it is not a good movie. I am aware of that. But for me, it's just so enjoyable to watch. And so honestly, when it comes to ranking things, my like level of enjoyment will always like outweigh just because something maybe is technically a better movie, but I enjoy this one so much. So there is one thing about this movie that automatically just like wins it over in my heart. Like, it could be a terrible, terrible movie. It could be worse than it is, and I will still rank it high because of one thing. I love movies with boats. Something about it, especially, I'm not talking like little boats, I mean like big boats, like big scary boats, like Titanic, The Lost World, Ghost Ship, Poseidon, another ship movie that another ship movie that I'm sure I'm not mentioning and can't think of that is probably really obvious, but I love movies with boats. I don't know what it is. I think part of it is, one, boats are big and scary, and I think also it adds suspense to think about someone being on a boat out at sea. And Jaws.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Anyways, I think it adds suspense to think about a group of people being, you know, in a situation. They know that the situation's dangerous. They know it's not good, but there's nothing they can do about it because they're on a boat at sea. And you gotta respect the sea. And I think that is amazing. So I just, honestly, the boat, like, takes it over. Also, I think it's really great because they found a way to tie it to Camp Crystal Lake. But Jason gets to travel, he gets to see the sights, he gets to go to the big city. And boy, does he bring some great comedy when he's in that city. I love the scene of him looking at the billboard and seeing the hockey mask. I love some of his like little wholesome jokes in there, like when he kicks the used boombox. I love it. And this movie is like super 80s, and I am here for it. It has a really catchy theme song in the beginning that like I want to dance to just playing it in my head. The other two things I really like about this is, well, there's a dog. A dog that I know is real and alive at the end, which is fantastic. Also, I think Julius's kill is amazing. I get that it's like super like over the top, but the idea of someone getting their head punched off is absolutely amazing. Now, the bad things about this movie. I am aware that this movie can be incredibly inconsistent with its plot, with its filming. I'd say the main thing that baffled me even as a kid was I always tried to figure out how Camp Crystal Lake feeds into the ocean. Can someone show me that route on a map? I can't find it. How does that boat get there? We'll never know. Also, how does Jason get places? He's here and then he's there. He's behind you and then he's on top of you. How does he do this? Is he magic? I mean, I know he's a zombie now, but is he magic? Maybe. Where did all the students go? I mean, did they actually die? Did they sink? Did they drown? Did Jason kill them? I want to know what happened to the rest of the students. Also, why does toxic waste flood the sewers every night? Is that just what happens in cities? I don't think so. Hey, I know also that little boy Jason is not good. Like little boy Jason, like in the porthole, in the mirror, he's not good. He looks bad. It's corny, it's cheesy. I don't like it either. I think another critique of it is just it has the fake knockoff Crazy Ralph. And if you can't beat Crazy Ralph, why are you even trying? In the 5th spot, I think this is one that a lot of people hold up as one of the best in the franchise. I agree, it is definitely a really good one. This one also, I've moved around a little bit. Like sometimes it's higher, sometimes, I don't know if it ever goes lower than this spot, but sometimes it's higher than this spot depending on my mood. But Friday the 13th, the final chapter, part 4, from 1984. So this one I think is great because, well, one, we get Tommy Jarvis's characters introduced. We also have a nice, like, wholesome family brought in, and I really like the juxtaposition of the wholesome family to the very, you know, curious teens, the very curious teens. I think that's a nice combination and contrast. I also really enjoy the teen group. I feel like they feel like real people that would really be friends, as opposed to like maybe some of the characters in 3 that, like part 3, that felt kind of flat. I felt like these felt like real people. Also, you get better acting because you got Crispin Glover, you got Corey Feldman, so it's awesome. There's the epic dance scene, which is amazing. And also, I think that this gives us the greatest line ever in the entire franchise. So yeah, that is absolutely amazing. I think my biggest complaints about this one, and there's not many, this is, I think, objectively a really good movie. I think Samantha's death is a little cringy. I giggle every time I watch it. And I don't think that was the tone they were going for, so I think it makes it worse. Anyways, all right. So in the 4th spot, Friday the 13th, Jason Lives. So part 6, this came out in 1986, which is a fantastic year. Hey. So I think some of the great things about this movie, honestly, there's way more positives than negatives, obviously. I mean, that's why it's in like the top 4. I love that you have the continuation of Tommy Jarvis's character, and you actually get to see him throughout the whole movie, and he's sassy and he's enjoyable. He's really likable. This is technically also when Jason becomes a zombie, so I guess it makes more sense at least why he doesn't die, because he's already technically dead. So, you know, all those other movies where you're like, why doesn't he die? He's such a brute force of a man. This one, it makes sense. He is a zombie. It makes my brain hurt less, so that's good. Best thing about this movie, camp is back. And not just a camp, but a camp with kids in it. They have kids in it. It's the first one since the original to actually have like kids at a camp, which I think is great because it really, I think, raises the stakes. Like, will Jason actually kill a kid? Now, I know now we know that he wouldn't, his character wouldn't, but you know, a lot of his buddies, though, they don't think that way, so we didn't know at the time if he would. But I think it's great, and also the kids add a lot of really great humor and like one-liners. It feels, again, like a more wholesome movie because of that, which I think makes it feel more suspenseful because we care more about the characters and what's going on in the movie. I like that the movie is a little bit meta with, you know, the comment of I've seen enough horror movies to know that you don't want to mess with a guy in a mask. I also like that this movie is actually pretty progressive. You know, there's no nudity in it. It has Megan, who is a strong final girl, and it has the female paintballer, who is also way stronger than all the males in it, and that very misogynistic paintballer who comments on, you know, the gender roles and everything. So it's just funny how progressive this movie is. I like that. I do enjoy the side characters also. I think the paintballers are really, really cool. This is one of the movies where there's actual multi-kills, so most people get killed in a single like attempt, which is fun. It's different, it's entertaining. Okay, one of them is. One of them not so much, I guess. But also, Jason gets a theme song. Really catchy song, can't play it. Put a link in the description, but I love this song also. Again, very 80s, but super fun. Honestly, I think my only critique My only critique about this movie is that when Tommy Jarvis is insulting Jason, I just think it gets kind of corny. But honestly, this movie's great. I think the only reason it's not higher is it's just not one I rewatch a lot. I enjoy it. I think it's a great movie. I just enjoy the other ones more. In the third spot, with the bronze, Friday the 13th, Part 2, released in 1981. This one also was, I feel like I say this about all of them, this one was my favorite at some point. It was my favorite at some point. I think this one is really, really great. Basically, they said, hey, we had this success with this first one, let's just do that again with new characters. And they did, and it works for me. I know it doesn't work for everyone. Some people will just feel like it's boring because it's the same thing over again, but I actually really like it. We actually get Jason for the first time, so I think that makes this movie super special. We get Sackhead Jason also, which is pretty gosh darn creepy. I think he is creepier than Hockey Mask Jason, without a doubt. I really like a lot of the characters in this. I think Ted is great comic relief. I think Jeff is great comic relief.
Come and get him! Here.
I think Marv is super wholesome.
Vicky, is that you?
Ginny is a fantastic final girl. I also like that they bring in psychology into this one, and I like that they touched on the impact of trauma and maybe why Jason is doing what he's doing, kind of highlighting the impact that, you know, Miss Voorhees' death had on Jason. It makes us feel for him more as a person. I really like that. Also, I think, you know, it does have one of the iconic kills from the franchise, the wheelchair kill. That's just like, it's amazing. And you get Crazy Ralph again, so great movie. Downside, and I know everyone's gonna disagree with this because they say this about another movie that I haven't mentioned yet, or about some of the ones I have mentioned. I feel like this movie drags on. I feel like this movie feels longer than it is because it's actually shorter than I think some of them, but it feels really long. Like that chase sequence, the way they edited it, I felt like it took hours. I feel like Vicky's kill is really also feels like it takes forever. But yeah, I think that's my biggest complaint is the pacing of this movie. I feel like it's drawn out, or it's not that it's drawn out, it's that it's uneven. I feel like it's the action is very like localized, and then it's all just like drawn out at the end. Also, I don't like that they have a recap. I know that why they have the recap, but the other movie just came out the year before. I don't think they needed to have a recap. In my second spot, did I do it? Did I break the cardinal rule? Did I have the reboot beat out the original? In my second spot, Friday the 13th, the reboot from 2009. I didn't have it beat out the original. So the reboot is amazing. Like, the reboot is so good. The cold open for the title card is so fantastic. I love the actors in it. They're so entertaining. It's super action-packed. It's super fast-paced. The whole movie is fast-paced. I mean, literally, it runs. In fact, Jason runs, which we never see him do, really. I liked that it really made Jason also a very smart, clever, almost manipulative killer without compromising the core reason why he does things, which is his mother. I think the acting is really good and entertaining. I really enjoy the characters. There's a lot of comedic characters in it, which is great. I think there's some really fun kills. Also, I really like the final girl psych out. You know, you think that Jenna is going to be the final girl, but then she actually isn't going to be because she's dead, and then it's actually going to be Whitney and her brother, which I think is fantastic. Again, that's also something that's not usually done, the like sibling duo. Okay, wait, take that back, final chapter, sibling duo, but different because age gap. Anyways, yeah, I like the final girl psych out. I think my main critique is just there's a lot of boobs in this. Yeah, it's very boob forward, which is unnecessary in my eyes. But otherwise, this movie is great. I think it's great. I love rewatching it. It holds up, I think, also, because it's like 15 years old now, and I just rewatched it, and I think it's still very entertaining, really great. Yeah, the other thing that I don't like about it is I don't like that, like, Jenna apparently doesn't care that her boyfriend's having sex with Bree. That always seemed a little weird, but otherwise, movie holds up, great time. Rewatch it all the time. Fantastic film. And in the first spot, the only movie left, the original Friday the 13th from 1980. So I know, I'm sure I'm falling victim to the fact that it's nostalgic, and that is one of the reasons it is my favorite. There were a lot of points in my life where it was not my favorite. Other movies I looked more forward to watching, but this one, I genuinely look forward to watching, and I rewatch it on a regular basis. Something about this movie just makes me feel summery and ready, and like ready for summer, and it makes me want to go camping. I don't know if it's supposed to make me want to go camping, but it does, and I love that. But I love that it's so natural and it's outside. I love that it's simple also, but really, really charming. I know a lot of people think it's slow, but I love the pacing. It's super chill. If you've gone camping, this is camping. This movie is what camping feels like. Just very chill, just hanging out, playing Strip Monopoly. Okay, hanging out, playing Monopoly, enjoying your friends. Like, it's just super relaxing. And I think I like that. I think it feels realistic. I also know it's not the first movie to do this, but I do like the point of view, the killer's POV. I think that's really interesting. Also, we get some really nice acting. We have Betsy Palmer, who's fantastic. And then also we have Kevin Bacon is like he's really selling his role. And if you don't like Kevin Bacon, I don't know what's wrong with you. Also, I really enjoyed Brenda's character. I always thought she was really sweet and wholesome, and I don't know, I liked that. Also, we have great side characters. We have Crazy Ralph. We have Sandy, the diner lady, who's fantastic. Amazing. Now, I know that everyone thinks that it's just like a copy of what Halloween did, and there are aspects, 100%, that are similar to Halloween. But what's the thing that they did differently? They gave us a female serial killer, and that is different, and that is amazing. And think about it, like, this is before Angela Baker, so I know there's some female killers, but like this is like the true iconic female serial killer that we have not had yet. It's amazing. Honestly, my only real complaint about this movie, they killed a snake. Not cool, guys. Especially because I hear that the handler didn't know they were going to kill the snake, and that makes me very sad. Because this makes me want to cry. But yeah, they killed a snake, not okay with that. Also, sometimes Betsy Palmer and Kevin Bacon are great actors. Sometimes the acting between Alice and Steve Christie is a little meh. Like, are they supposed to have chemistry? Because I don't think they do. But yeah, so that's my ranking. If you disagree with me, feel free to let me know. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear what your ranking is. I expect this ranking to change. It's very fluid. It changes all the time. Again, I was changing movies right up until I sat down, basically. But in this moment, this is my ranking from worst to best. Let me know if you agree. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Drive careful. I will. Good night.